I'd like to thank you for inviting me on the show. It's such an honour to be here, and I'd just like to say that when I'm not playing Xbox with my mate Thor, I really like to listen to my favourite podcast, Pop Culture Pastor.
Pop Culture Pastor.
Well, Cody, it's been a bit. It's been a bit.
It feels like it's been a mighty long time.
Yeah, we're used to spending, more time together and within more days. But I was gone at youth camp.
Someone had to take care of the Utes.
Yeah, I mean, preferably someone else. No. It was good. It was a good time with the youngins and my youth pastor duties. But I'm glad to be back because I miss talking with you about nerdy stuff.
There was so much that happened, and I have forgotten it all.
Yeah, we were just looking. Well, it's like I feel like there was stuff for news that we should be talking about, but I had to look back to my phone because I didn't have. Obviously, at camp, you're not on your phone a lot. In fact, we confiscate the kids' phones. The kids, we take their phones and give it back to them at the end of the week. I had my phone because I had to, do work and stuff. But
you monsters!
Yeah, I know. But we want to give them a glimpse on what it used to be. What it used to be like.
So. Question. So we're reviewing the Flash movie, but when you watched the Flash movie, did you see the Dove mental health commercial?
I did not. No.
Oh my goodness. So it was like a 2-minute advertisement.
Really?
About social media and the harmful effects it has on teens and children, and it especially targeted those that feel that they have to look and weigh a certain amount, and the amount of depression and body dysmorphia and all the mental health diagnoses that can come from it. And it was a very serious and moving commercial. And literally my wife cried during it. And I'm like, we didn't even get to the movie trailers.
Lee is a sensitive soul.
But it was a really good and well done commercial. If you haven't watched it, I recommend it.
I dig that about you too, by the way, that she's the crier and you never cry.
Yeah.
It's you're like the perfect opposite sides of the same coin type deal.
Yeah.
She does all the crying for both of you.
She does. Someone needs to.
Yeah, it's a good message, and I think we need to hear it more. I'm just not sure what the solution is because it seems like it's going to come down to individual, you're just going to want to have to do that for yourself because there's nothing. I don't think we can turn back the clock on the technology. Everybody has these, everybody's going to have the phones.
Yeah, I don't think you can turn back the technology. I think parents can do different things with the amount of technology time, the amount of how much you allow them to do on the technology, because technology in itself is not evil. But when it becomes too much, and when on Instagram, everyone and their mom is putting their photos through filters and editing them so they all look like models, and that, you got to look like this or you're failing at life. And
it's brutal. It's brutal.
It is.
Just anyone listening right now, let me just solve this for you. You're beautiful. You're beautiful. You don't have to do anything to yourself. You're beautiful. Just the way you are. I mean that sincerely, but beauty's in the eye of the beholder, and we need to take back that beholder power, right?
Yeah.
And take it back from the culture. Anyways, yeah. So we need to get a podcast lobby, big pod, to lobby in Congress to say we need a campaign for people to turn off their phone screens and just use their phone to listen to pods.
That's only good that your phone will do you.
More phone time, less screen time, more pods.
Yes.
Welcome. This is Pop Culture Pastor. My name is Dave. That's Cody.
I'm here.
We are pastors who love pop culture. We're geeks.
We are.
And we are here to later on get into reviewing The Flash, which we saw The Flash. But we're gonna go over a couple news items here real quick. Oh, and later on we'll also talk to Scotty and Comics Conclave.
That's happening. Sandman time.
Yeah. So here we go. Let's go to these news items first. I want to talk about Quentin Tarantino. Quentin Tarantino recently did an interview. He's been talking a lot.
Oh, he's coming up on his last film.
And it's like he's saying like kind of highly shocking things here and there too. Like he's trying to get one more like, hello, I'm still here before he leaves. I don't know. In a new interview with Variety, Tarantino spoke about where he draws the line on violence. And at that, my eyebrows go up a little bit. I'm like, okay. He's going to talk about where he draws the line because his movies are pretty violent.
There is so much tomato juice.
Lots of blood.
That gets used.
He said this, quote, I have a big thing about killing animals in movies. That's a bridge I can't cross. Insects, too. Unless I'm paying to see some bizarro documentary, I'm not paying to see real death. I'm so confused, Cody.
This is like very interesting, especially when like you compare it to other people in the culture and society. So there was a music video back when I was in college, like undergrad college, where it's a song called Telephone by Lady Gaga and Beyonce.
Okay.
Very beginning of the music video, Lady Gaga is like, you know what they say, you kill a cow, you gotta make a burger. And like, I think Lady Gaga really is not huge on killing animals and is all about protecting the animals. And then you have Quentin Tarantino that's like, let's kill every person under the sun. And how dare you even think about squashing this fly?
Yeah. Well, so at first I thought this doesn't make any sense, bro. You're okay with showing senseless human slaughter on screen, but you're not okay with showing an animal killing on a screen?
And he specifically said insects.
Yeah, but then he goes on, and then it's clear he means something else. He continued, some animal, some dog, some llama, some fly, some rat doesn't care. I'll paraphrase there about your movie. I'd kill 1 million rats, but I don't necessarily want to kill one in a movie or see one killed in a movie because I'm not paying to see real death. Wait a minute. He's talking about movie makers killing real animals? Who's doing that?
PETA has like lobbied against this for years.
Like all the movies, the ASPCSA, whatever it is, says no animals were harmed.
Yes.
Nobody's killing animals,
we
dude.
have CGI now. Like,
Tarantino, what are you talking about?
Sure, Ben-Hur, there was a ton of horses that did not make it.
That old one?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Or one of the other old Charlton Heston films. But yes, there were horses that did not survive the flick. I get you. But like, that probably hasn't been a huge deal in the past 30 years.
No, it's such a weird... I have no idea what Tarantino's talking about. Because at first I thought he was just sensitive to animal killing depiction. No, he's talking about real animals dying and making a movies, which I'm like, which movie are you talking about, bro? What have you been watching?
Watching some dark indie docs.
Watching some snuff films or something. I don't know, but I'm pretty sure there's rules against that. Anyways, so Quentin Tarantino, still weird. Still weird. We're getting ready to talk about The Flash, so we should talk about this because this was making headlines. Probably not good that it made headlines the week of The Flash coming out. But Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, or Aquaman 2 or whatever you want to call it,
Aquaman Dose,
starring Jason Momoa, is reportedly so bad and boring and needs a lot of work to fix it before its Christmas release, or Warner Brothers risk the blockbuster, quote, being a lame duck. Although I'm not sure it's not that already.
So my friend Jason, he did like an Instagram picture, and it looked like he was on the set to do reshoots, redos of this flick. So, I'll say the first Aquaman was very visually appealing to me. Like when they're underwater, it does look really cool, like kind of sci-fi. But like the story wasn't that great. You either went into it because you're like, oh, that Jason Momoa is a bad American, and I'm going to see him be a bad American underwater. Or you went into it like, oh, I'm one of the 3 people that really like Aquaman.
I mean, I even like Jason Momoa, but I've tried to watch that movie twice, fell asleep both times. I don't know what that means. Maybe I'm just picking the wrong time to try to sit down and watch that movie. I didn't see it in the theater. I waited till it came out.
Oh, theater. It was visually stunning.
Well, that may be. I'm watching it on a smaller screen. So, maybe I just should have seen it in the right environment. But
it's also a very dark film. And if you're in a very dark room, I could see how one would fall asleep.
Here's what they're saying. This is viewer Anon put it out there, or big screen leak. Sorry. Big screen leak says this. I heard that something that almost never happened in test screenings happened with this movie. They're really going to need to fix this one and fix it fast. And can we get some toast, which is a big Twitter account on Twitter that deals in a lot of news kind of out there. What's the word I'm looking for? Speculative news.
Okay.
Like what's coming down the pike. They tweeted people walked out. Been hearing similarly bad things about Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. It's a shame because I read the script for over a year ago and it was actually pretty good. Can we get some toast? Says. So I don't know.
I got a question though. How are people not walking out of Avatar when like they're test screening that? Like I get it. It's visually appealing. The graphics are great, but the story was awful.
Part of the problem is I don't think this is just a Warner Brothers thing. Right? I think the stories, like even Marvel, I mean, part of the problem with some of these Marvel movies is the story's not real good.
Mm-hmm.
And I just kind of wonder if we're just not writing, say what you want about superhero movies, but Captain America, the Winter Soldier is a very good story.
Word.
Even Civil War, which is a bombastic superhero movie with tons of them in it, had a great story, great villain. Like the villain's plot in that movie was very intricate and it just was really, really good.
I call Robert Downey Jr. the villain of that movie.
Chris Nolan, all these movies coming out, they don't hold a candle to Chris Nolan's Batman films as far as the story goes. And they don't always look, Chris Nolan, I've talked about Chris Nolan before, that sometimes I think he sacrifices the logics of a story just for like a cool twist or turn. So it leaves plot holes sometimes, but I will admit that as far as writing a deep, intricate story, I mean, it's miles better than what we've been getting lately in the superhero genre.
Did you see the serious do-re-mi that Warner Brothers dropped at Chris Nolan's feet over the past week?
For what?
They gave him a bonus for Tenet as an incentive to come or to keep working with Warner Brothers in the future in writing and executive producing.
Well, that'd be good for them. Warner Brothers needs help. I mean, they can't be doing well. And as we're going to get into with The Flash, things are not going well for Warner Brothers. So, yeah, that's new. Do we have any other news? I don't know that we have any other news to talk about.
Besides, Chris Nolan got paid.
Chris Nolan should get paid. He's one of the best filmmakers right now in the business, I would say.
I'm so excited for Oppenheimer. I'm not even.
It looks good. It looks really good. And talk about a story that's like even in the preview, they play up he's saying he thinks he's creating something that will
bring peace.
That's going to force peace, which frankly, he's been right. I mean, we got close a couple times.
We're on edge with that peace.
The Cold War kind of sucked, but we didn't destroy each other. It worked like he thought it would. And, it's ongoing, but so far so good, I guess. I don't know. I'm excited to see the movie. It's the study of the man Oppenheimer is very intriguing to me. And I'm wondering how Nolan's going to play that because there's some people who are going to hate him for creating something that someone would have created within a couple years at most.
Literally Nazi Germany was working on it.
Yeah.
Before Oppenheimer assembled his crew. So
it looks like it's definitely probably going to be pro-American.
Barbieheimer. That's what I'm calling this weekend.
Yeah, that's going to be a fun weekend. Okay. We are going to get ready and to talk about The Flash, and we'll do that right after we get back. Don't go anywhere. We're back. It's time to review The Flash. First things first. If you haven't seen The Flash,
pause this.
Pause it. This big, all caps, spoilers from this point forward. We are going to dig into this movie and get it out there and talk about it. And
frame by frame.
No, let's not do that. We're going to keep it, hopefully around 45 minutes at most.
2 hours later.
Oh, gosh. I don't know if there's enough money in the world for me to talk about this movie for 2 hours.
There is for me.
It's a frustrating movie, and we'll just go right into our broad takes on it, and I'll go first.
Okay.
It's frustrating in that I think the movie's enjoyable. I think it's an enjoyable movie. As we'll talk about later, I just think it's peppered with just very weird, odd decisions. And that's not abnormal for a Warner Brothers superhero flick. Just some weird, they made some weird choices, and this just being the broad take, that's all I'm going to say about it now. It's just that I think somewhere on some level is a version of this movie that could have been the greatest comic book movie in all time, which, James Gunn famously said.
Tommy Cruise, Stevie King, and Will Smith's son, Jaden.
Yeah, I think what's clear about that now is that they definitely got paid or were cashing favors, because I don't think anybody could watch this movie and say it's the best comic book movie of all time. I have severe doubts that Tom Cruise wasn't given something, like there wasn't some favors exchange. I don't even know. And Stephen King, come on, bro. Come on. Really?
So
I will also like Quantumania.
I will say the guy that directed this directed it in It Chapter 2.
Okay, so Stephen
King actually knows the director.
He's rooting for his buddy.
Yes.
So I'll give him a pass.
Tom Cruise, I don't know.
I don't trust that guy. I don't trust Tom Cruise with his Scientology and his spaceships. No. I don't know. I just don't know what you give Tom Cruise to make him say that. Does he have any investing interest in Warner Brothers? He doesn't, does he? I don't.
Unless they're the ones that keep putting out Mission Impossibles.
They showed the preview for that movie before The Flash, and my wife was like, they're making another one? Oh, it's part one? They're making two more? I was like, they're just going to keep making Mission Impossible movies until Tom Cruise isn't around anymore. And we'll just see him as like an 80-year-old dude falling off of cliffs, riding motorcycles off of cliffs.
Before he was born, all the missions were possible.
Nothing but possible missions before Tom Cruise was around. And now, anyways, we went down a rabbit hole.
We did.
A Tom Cruise rabbit hole. I just don't know. I think broadly, the movie, it's a decent popcorn flick. I had fun watching the movie, but I'll get into more specifics as we move on.
So for me, I actually thought it was good. I'm not going to say it was great.
Yeah.
I actually did enjoy the storyline and some of the story choices they made to change it up and give us something different. Really liked all the cameos. Since it's like in a weird in-between area, but if it was a part of the DCEU, might be the best DCEU film.
Yeah. So it
because
does.
the Batman's in Elseworld and it's way better than the Flash, but the Flash compared to I really feel this was a more complete film than Man of Steel. I think it was better storyline than most other.
Yeah, weirdly, people like retroactively have really loved Man of Steel. Like I've noticed in the past few years that Man of Steel gets buffed up now, which I find strange because like when it came out, it was like a 50-50 proposition. And I'm kind of said where I'm at on record where I thought about they made half a great movie.
Yes.
And then the second half was a little disappointing for me. And so I would actually agree with you there.
So I'll say Shazam and the Flash battling it out for the best of the DCEU, although it's technically not part of the DCEU, but still it's not part of the DCU. It's in this weird in-between.
Man.
God only knows what's happening.
Yeah. And they missed a real opportunity, I think, to really kind of let this be the catalyst to move into whatever they're doing
And
next.
I told you that there was an easy way that you can make this your resetting film.
Yeah.
And even have like Ezra go the way of the dodo bird with it if you wanted to. But
It probably would have had to been delayed.
yes.
But like they had the opportunity to delay this movie with the stuff with Ezra. And it just seems like maybe they just didn't want to, which whatever. We'll get into the Ezra Miller part of this as well, because actually I think all that's kind of just tragic now. Mm-hmm. I feel for Ezra Miller, but we'll get to that. I know a lot of people, like it's real popular now to be like, I ain't watching this movie because I'm not supporting Ezra Miller and he's terrible. And it's like, yes, he's done bad things, but by all accounts, Ezra is getting help.
Yeah, and there's a lot of weirdness around. Like, so there's like the known for sure allegations because, there's video proof. And then there's like this random stuff that was thrown out like when all this was bubbling up. And like it kind of has gone radio silent, but like it's still out there on the record. And it's like,
Yeah.
So did anything come of this? Because these are far more like allegations, but from all accounts and from Ezra's brief, like all they said was, I'm glad you all came out to watch The Flash.
Yeah.
Hope you enjoy it.
Yeah. So just a very broad plot points here. We find the Flash, Barry Allen, kind of picks up where Justice League leaves off, and he's living in Central City. He's doing his thing as a forensics guy for the Central City Police Department.
As Barry Allen does.
Yeah, he's kind of playing mop-up duty for the Justice League still, like getting the poor jobs, I guess, while Batman gets the cool stuff.
And Superman's out all by himself, and Wonder Woman can't be bothered to answer her phone.
Yeah. So like it's kind of played for laughs. And basically we get into this kind of storyline where the Flash Barry figures out he can go back in time, and he starts to formulate this plot to go back and save his mom from being murdered. So if you don't know the backstory of the Flash, it's pretty similar through the Flash TV shows they've made. This Flash
Comics,
that his mom is murdered when he is young. His dad is accused of the murder, goes to prison, and that is what prompts young Barry Allen to go into the world of, CSI, basically, to be a forensic detective because he wants to prove his father's innocence.
And then he gets his abilities because he's in that world.
Yes, and he gets his abilities, and this is a major DC story that they've adapted here.
Yes.
Flashpoint is what it's called. He goes back in time, ensures that his mother will live, and then he messes everything up.
There's a great animated Flashpoint Paradox movie.
Mm-hmm. Go watch that one.
Ouch. But so it's a common story within like DC fandom.
Yes.
Like Barry will go back and Barry will mess things up by going back.
So every version of the Flash has done this, probably, like the TV show, the comics, now the movie. And honestly, I think this is one of the worst takes on that. Now, I'm not saying that the movie's terrible. I'm just saying, as far as an adaptation of Flashpoint goes, this was like one of the least powerful takes on that, because they actually use it as like a side plot device, right? It's not about Flashpoint. For instance, they never say who kills his mom. It's not part of the story.
Not yet.
Not yet. They're not continuing this story.
That's what you think.
No, come on.
Because all the rumors are...
No, the rumor was, there wasn't a rumor. They said this movie's got to make $700 million. It's not touching $300 million.
They said Ezra's still potentially the Flash.
I think they're full of junk.
Well, that's what you hope.
I think Warner Brothers is a bunch of dirty liars. I don't think they care about Ezra. I don't think they care about anything. And I don't think they're necessarily always telling the truth. I think they said that before the movie came out because they wanted to convince you that this movie was good. So you go see the movie and they get lots of money. But I don't think they ever had any plans of continuing this. I think they just went with it because they couldn't lose any more money. They already shut down Batgirl, which was done, apparently.
Oh, yeah, it was ready to be released.
And they just shut it down. So that's like they couldn't take any more. They couldn't take any more L's.
But I wonder if Ezra has a picture deal with Warner Brothers that Ezra has to appear in so many.
I bet they buy that out.
Because
I bet they'll buy it out. There's got to be a buyout.
Ezra was part of the Fantastic Beast franchise. Mm-hmm. Ezra is a part of the DC.
That franchise is done though too.
Yeah, I never watched the third one.
They pretty much said it's done. The last movie didn't do well.
Well, and it had, before Ezra's side issues, it had Johnny Depp issues, and so they had to change that character.
Yeah. Anyways, so he goes back in time, stops this, messes up time, finds himself in an alternate reality, which wouldn't be that big of a deal, except for he runs into himself.
He does.
This reality's version of himself. And it also just happens to be the day where Zod from Man of Steel comes to Earth. And the problem is that on this reality, there is not an active Batman. There's no Superman. And Zod's going to destroy the Earth.
As Zod wants to do.
Looking for a Kryptonian. So enter the big cameos in this movie that play a part. Michael Keaton's Batman.
Yeah.
And Sasha Cal's Supergirl. So the movie becomes like we're getting the band back together type thing. And they go fight Zod.
This will be in what we like.
Yeah. We'll get to that. This is just the broad take.
Gotta hold off.
I don't know that anything is actually solved by this, except for Barry realizes that his mom has to die. It's like, what kind of event? He explains it with the spaghetti.
Yes,
Michael Keaton's Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, it's a cross-sectional.
It's a cross-sectional spaghetti event.
Yes,
that has to happen. Something or other, timey-wimey stuff.
Yes.
And this world is supposed to die. Blah, blah, blah.
Every universe, Barry Allen's mom has to die for the world to keep going on.
Didn't know. I'm not really sure how that makes sense, but that's what happens. He goes back. There's a really emotional scene where he takes the tomato juice. Like dude, whoever wrote this really is like spaghetti.
You know, if you've had good spaghetti.
And I have. I can see it, but man, mixing some garlic bread, right?
Yes. And evidently Barry is of Italian heritage. So
is his mom Italian or Hispanic?
I don't know if mom is. I assume dad was because dad's singing in Italian.
Oh, okay. I missed that.
And so, like, because when he visits dad at jail or prison, dad's like, you remember the song? And like Barry sings it at the end of the movie.
Okay, that makes sense. So mom is Hispanic, dad's the Italian one.
I presume.
I just didn't register for me because it's Peter from Office Space.
Yes, and I'm like, that guy got work. Yeah.
I'm not used to him being ethnic, you know? He's Peter from Office Space. No.
Can't say I'm actually missing it.
Well, that makes sense. Anyways, he doesn't save anything. Can't save that world. Can't save his mom because that's a whatever event. And then he goes back. You think he's fixed it. And we find out that no, as a matter of fact, he's not even back in his own timeline. Movie ends.
Well, that's because he clearly altered something that wasn't to deal with his mom.
Did he? Is that clear?
He somehow got dad's attention. Because dad looks up instead of keeping his head down.
Yeah, and he looks up because he moved the tomato cans to the top shelf.
And so him altering that placement of the tomato cans.
Oh, okay.
He altered something in the timeline and that splintered off. And so now that's why we have this messed up world that Barry's in.
Okay. So yeah, that's basically the story. Let's get into what's good. I will graciously allow you to go with your first what's good.
Okay, so I'll go out the gates with a big swing. Loved Michael Keaton being back. I loved the choices they make with Michael Keaton being back. Like, oh, they don't need me. I am now kind of just this recluse that Gotham's doing fine. There's not that much crime. I'm just bitter and old, living by myself, and evidently know everything about time travel and how parallel multi-universes work.
I love that the Batman from the Tim Burton movies is somehow a time travel expert, right?
Yes.
I know he's a smart dude, but that was like...
And then, like, I love the fact that they weren't afraid to kill him. And kill him a ton. Like, oh, Michael Keaton's dead. Let's go back and do it again. Oh, Michael Keaton's dead. Oh, let's go back and do it again. Like, that is a beloved character. I went into it just solely because Michael Keaton, like there was a 30-second trailer that was primarily Keaton. And I'm like, sweet, you got me.
Yeah. I do have specific thoughts about the end.
But so you have Michael Keaton back, and then since it's The Flash and he can go back in time, and this movie shows no matter how many times Barry goes back, nothing good is going to come of this timeline that he has created with his mom living. And they weren't afraid to keep showing Michael Keaton meeting his demise. I'm like, that's bold. That's spicy. That is a braver take than what they did in The Last Jedi. And I thought it was better executed. So I really loved Michael Keaton being there. I loved the nostalgia. You get to see the old Batmobile. You get to see the old bat suit and
The Batcave,
The
his
Batcave.
mansion, yeah. Wayne Manor.
yeah, it was a fun trip down memory lane.
I will echo that. I think Michael Keaton's, well, he's great. He's just great. And even though it seemed gratuitous in the trailers with him doing the lines, you know,
I'm Batman.
You want to get nuts? Let's get nuts. You know, it seemed
Yeah.
gratuitous in the moment. I'll admit it was enjoyable.
It was highly enjoyable.
Yeah.
And like, I love that. So Michael Keaton has gotten to live out both sides of the coin of you either die a hero or live long enough to become a villain. Cause like he's played villains in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and he got to become the hero again in Batman or in The Flash as Batman. And then he dies over and over again in this one. And then they're like, oh, don't worry. He won't actually have to die because the tomato sauce will be back.
I think Michael Keaton's great. I think he's great. I loved every minute he was on screen.
I need more Keaton.
Yeah.
It felt like for a split second, a Batman film that featured the Flash.
Yeah, it was very nostalgic for someone like me who's a little bit older, when that movie came out, I'm about 13 years old. And it was the first time in my lifetime Batman on a screen had been played seriously. There was the Batman TV show with Adam West, which was, of course, campy and fun.
Holy rusted nails, Batman.
And even though the movie was a little bit more Tim Burton-y than I would have cared for,
It was very Tim Burton-y.
it was still fun. And the Prince soundtrack, of course, was a favorite of mine. I loved Prince.
This movie came out the year I was born.
Yes.
And so like I grew up with Batman.
Yeah, it's it was great. It was great to see Michael Keaton back. My first what's good, I'm going to say Ezra Miller. Like, listen, whatever his issues are, whatever Ezra's issues are, I'm trying. I got to try harder.
Their
with,
issues.
Yes, their issues. Whatever their issues are, there's no doubt that Ezra Miller is a fantastic actor. They are just very, very good at immersing themselves in a role. They any role that Ezra's in, they just become that person.
The Perks of Being a Wallflower, Fantastic Beasts 1 and 2. I can't comment on 3. Ezra has done a phenomenal job in each of those roles. And so I never had a doubt that Ezra would do a phenomenal job in this. But like the stuff that happens outside the movie definitely weighs in on some of my
I'm just
stuff.
Speaking of Ezra's work in the movie, Ezra is a generational talent. I truly believe that Ezra, if he gets whatever, if Ezra gets whatever help they need, that Ezra will be one of the greats. They're that good at what they do. So Ezra Miller is great as an actor in this movie. What's good?
So it kind of goes back to my first one.
Please say the Batman theme. Seriously?
Yeah, I mean, that was epic.
Yeah, let's give a bonus one in here. Danny Elfman's Batman theme.
Yes.
Every time that come on, I wanted to jump up and go, woohoo! Yeah!
We're back.
Da-na-na-na-na! Yeah.
So in a lot of times in Flashpoint Paradox, when Ezra goes back, or when the Flash goes back, it's not Bruce that the Flash runs into. It is Thomas Wayne.
Right.
And so it's Batman's dad. Because instead of Thomas and Martha dying, it's Bruce that dies. And it sends Martha spiraling into being like the Joker and Thomas being the meanest Batman you've ever seen. And so you had some definite choices to make if you were Warner Brothers with this, because you could have gone Jeffrey Dean Morgan being Thomas Wayne and having that Batman. But if you were wanting to pick up the nostalgia factor and do it in a creative way, I think they executed it well, of making it, okay, Batman's still around, especially since in the current Barry Allen DCEU realm, Batman's old. So the Flash going back and running into an older Michael Keaton makes sense. It works because in this universe, evidently, Ben Affleck and Michael Keaton are the correct age for a Batman if the Flash is in his early 20s. So
yeah, I would agree. For as many questionable decisions as Warner Brothers makes with this movie that I'll get to later, this decision is not one of them. I'm like, if you're going to diverge from the Flashpoint story in this case, yes, give us the nostalgia. This is the closest move they make that rivals what Marvel did with Multiverse of Madness, where the cameos were characters that are beloved, that fans want to see. And so Michael Keaton's Batman is a solid choice. That's great.
Oh, yeah. Going back to that timeline, I'm here for it.
Yeah. My next What's Good is going to play right into that as well. I think Sasha Calle as Supergirl is fabulous. It's fantastic. This version of the Kryptonian that's sent to Earth, Clark doesn't make it. Kal-El doesn't make it.
They intercept him.
It is Kara Zor-El, and instead of being found by kindly Kansas farmers, she's found by Russians buried beneath the ground.
The Soviets did it again.
And as such, she does not have the upbringing of Clark.
No.
And the heart of Clark. And when she gets out, she's killing dudes.
Oh, yeah. They're flying off a mountain. I'm like, there's no way they're living.
Yeah, no, not at all. And that was important, I think, to show in the movie that, like, yeah, you're not dealing with, this is what would happen if, this is the importance of Jonathan and Martha Kent. Because when Supergirl comes on the scene and she gets the sun in her, because they've been keeping her underground, she's all, skinny and frail. And then as soon as they get her out in the sunlight, she just starts killing dudes. And I think that's what you should see. So you're seeing a very brutal, different Kryptonian.
And even in her lines, she says, I have not known humans to be nice.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, hey, you give background to why she's killing. It makes sense.
Yeah. And she's great. The actress that plays her, she's very believable. I never got taken out of the movie whatsoever when she's on screen. And I just thought she was wonderful.
So my next thing, and we might disagree on this one. So towards the end of the movie, multiverses are crashing in upon each other, and you get worlds colliding, and you see like all these different Batmen, Supermen, and even various Flashes. That got me right in the feels. I'm like, I love this. This is amazing. And they even do it's kind of a throwaway scene, and it made my wife so upset that they even had it in. But Nicolas Cage as Superman fighting the giant spider that Kevin Smith had wrote a script for, and Nicolas Cage was supposed to be that Superman.
Yeah. So if you're not familiar with its story, I would advise you to Google Kevin Smith and Superman. And you could surely find, he tells that story a lot. And and it's bonkers. It's like supreme Warner Brothers, just mess uppery. It's an incredible story. And, yeah.
Leah's like, why is he in this?
Oh,
why would you do that? All these other people are actually Superman. And I'm like, because he was supposed to be.
Yeah. We're going to get to that again. in a different category.
I figured. I loved it for like you get to see Superman from the 1950s. You get to see Batman.
Yeah. I will say the concept is good. I like the concept of it. I'm not sure I like the execution of it. And I need to ask Scotty a question about the colliding worlds thing because I don't remember that in the Flashpoint paradox stuff. And if not, they totally bit that from Marvel Secret Wars, the incursions. So like if I'm going to ask Scotty, because I'm DC history is not, I'm fuzzy on, but if they just totally bit that, that was wild.
It worked really well with the spaghetti noodles.
We're back to the spaghetti.
It all revolves around pasta, really, in this film.
I thought we were talking about my life for a second. It's like, yeah, it's all about the pasta. Oh, the movie. Yes.
Carbs.
Somehow all about spaghetti noodles, and tomato sauce. Is there anything? What else do you have that's good?
So I told you off air, and I'll say it. There was a scene that I did almost get really choked up in. So it comes right after this worlds colliding in on each other, and the Flash realizing, this won't work ever. The Flash goes back to the grocery store and has this very emotional scene with his mom, although mom doesn't know that it's her older son, but he, the mom pretends to be his mom because he says that he's back to visit his mom, and he gets really emotional, and she steps in like a loving mom and gives him the attention, even though she thinks that she's giving it to some random stranger. It's actually to her grown-up son. And all the feels and the emotions. And I think with it happening right after that huge flashback of nostalgia, I was on a high from that. There's Nick Cage fighting a spider.
You were very much more excited about that than I was.
And
it was hilarious.
It was.
Mind you, I laughed. But I don't think that's what they were looking for. Maybe they were. I don't know.
You had to be there. Just had to be there.
It's a bonkers choice.
It was. Sure. And then you have this huge, everything's going to be okay, Barry. Hug it out with your mom.
Hugs,
Bear. And I'm like, they nailed this scene. They nailed the scene. Whatever you think about the rest of the movie, they nailed that scene.
Yeah, I'd agree. It was a good scene. It was emotionally affecting, for sure.
So
good performances by Ezra and
by mom,
whoever played Ezra's mom, Barry's mom. Yeah,
yeah.
I'm not familiar with that actress, but it was good and it was emotional. Do you have anything more for the what's good category?
No.
Okay, let's go to what's not so good. Let's talk about the CGI first.
That's the obvious one to go to.
Yeah, that's why I want to talk about it first. Because there's quite a bit of backlash online. There's a lot of backlash on the Speed Force CGI when he's running. I don't want to get into that as much because I feel like that's not bad CGI. And Muschietti, the director, came out and basically said, no, that's how we wanted it to look.
That's a stylistic choice.
Yeah. And which at that point, I'm not really interested in saying whether it's good or bad because it's an artistic choice. At that point, I'm just like, okay, cool, dude. And then I really don't really care. And it didn't really bother me that much. Although I will say, why are we all of a sudden in this? The only question I had was, why are we with Barry in the Speed Force so much? Why aren't we seeing a random, what would be a random observer of him just, like
on the Flash TV show? Because constantly you're just seeing this red line just go back and forth.
I would have liked to have gone back and forth from those in that. But yeah, I don't really have a problem with the speed CGI.
So Screen Rant, they went off on the CGI, but before they did, they said there are some CGI moments that the Flash is not terrible. So here are the notable exceptions.
Okay.
Supergirl's flight is mostly handled well.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
The broad strokes of the final battles are impressive.
I would agree with that. The battle's good.
The baby shower sequence has its moments.
No.
Not perfect, but there's moments that it doesn't look bad.
We'll get back to that.
Keaton's Batman is thankfully treated with the reverence and respect of not being ragdolled all over the place or undone by poor vehicle mechanics. And at times, the Speed Force looks cool. That was their exceptions to the bad CG.
Yeah, I would agree with most of that. Yeah, I think they're right on about that. Let's talk about what is really bad, though.
Okay.
Anytime there are two Barrys on screen, one of the Barrys looks absolutely absurd most of the time, so much so at times that it's highly distracting. And what I want to say about this is why? Like, what's the problem here? They did this with Haley Mills and The Parent Trap in the 1960s. How can we be so bad at this?
I noticed it, but it wasn't that distracting to me. But
it looked like a bad video game at times, like Nintendo 64 style.
So for me, I'm much more of, if you have a great story, I will be tuned into the story.
Okay.
And
that's great if you're like that. Yeah.
Having grown up with, like, if you watched the original Star Wars before Lucas went in and like re-edited it, and like Han's going through Jabba's tail, and like you got a bunch of, like, growing up with bad graphics and just being like, okay, like, it happens. Like rewatching Jurassic Park at the time of Jurassic Park being released. Oh, amazing graphics. It's amazing technology, how they got those dinosaurs to come alive and their movements. It's herky-jerky now.
It's shocking Spielberg slander.
It is. But I mean, honestly,
it holds up magnificently. I don't know what you're talking about.
You go back and watch some of these older films, especially if you watch the ones that they haven't gone back and re-edited it for graphic quality. You're like, oh yeah, like, graphics haven't always been Avatar. The one thing I'll give James Cameron is Avatar is stunning graphics. But it is a trash story, and I am not here for it.
Yeah. Okay. Agreed.
It's
and listen,
traumatic for me.
My part of the thing, like, why I don't want to talk about the Speed Force CGI is talking about the CGI in general is just what you brought up. It's super subjective to how you're going to react to where the CGI is not perfect. Like, some of the Quantum Mania had some bad effects, but I don't remember it taking me out of the film as much as just the poor story. Like, if it's a poor story, then it's going to, then you're going to notice bad effects. Like, so I know that's going to be different. So I'll just say, hey, this CGI could have been better. And yeah, why is The Parent Trap in the 1960s doing it better than movies now?
Steve Urkel and Stefan Urkel doing it better?
Why? Why can't we do this better? Yeah. I'll let you go next. What's bad? What's not so good?
So, man, I'm nitpicking now, and I probably should be harsher on this.
Well, this is why I'll let you go, because I know I have a whole list under weird decisions.
Iris West fell off. Like,
yeah, she did, didn't she?
That was a weird choice.
It's the same actress in the Justice League, right? Because we see her
briefly, but like,
and they reference it.
Like the way her questions are and the way she kind of acts, she just didn't feel like Iris to me.
Yeah.
Like, I preferred the Iris in the Flash TV show.
Yeah.
And, like, a lot of people were like, the first couple seasons of the Flash TV show were okay, but after that, it's dog doo-doo. Now, I can't say that because I've only watched the first 2 seasons. So,
yeah, I don't know. I would agree. It fell off, and I'm not really sure how to put it into words.
yeah,
It's not. I don't think it's the actress's fault. I think she's paper thin. She's just there to like kind of move certain parts of the plot point around, and also just be Iris West.
because you have to have Iris West in the Flash.
But really, that character could have been anybody.
They could have had me playing Iris West, and I have no formal acting training.
Yeah, it was weird. It was rough. That part was rough. I agree. All of the rest of my what's not so good are going to fall under the heading of weird decisions.
Okay, I'm intrigued by this.
Yeah, weird choices that they made for this movie. Because again, I'd like to go back to what I said at the top. I think this is an enjoyable movie. And I think that somewhere inside this could have been a really, really good movie, but it's peppered with these just strange choices. Okay?
Okay.
Strange choice number 1. I'll start kind of innocuous. This Batman, his Gotham being the safest in the world, the safest city in the world, that goes against all Batman story lore. Batman, even in the Nolan movies, does not make Gotham safer per se. In fact, they actually reference how he brings the weirdos.
Yes, but if we don't have a Superman to bring the super weirdos, and maybe Michael Keaton's the best Batman of all time, and he's just like, I'll get you off the streets, Jack.
Granted, there's loopholes, and I'm ready to ride with it. I'm just saying it's a weird choice. Like, they could have made him a recluse and made it and not had dealt with any of that at all. He could have just said, well, hey, he killed the Joker and it was, crime was crime, but the police can handle it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Or that this Batman had a Robin and who's now Nightwing and could have spawned,
Could have done that, or this Batman had a Robin and Robin died. Yeah. And now I am too bitter to fight crime.
It's such a weird flex that it's because he won. Batman won. Gotham's the safest city in the world, and he decided to stop taking care of his mansion. Why does it look so bad then? What's going on?
Because the whole reason for him having meaning and purpose in his life is gone.
Well, just move then, bro. Just move to a different town, make a new Batcave. Anyways,
not how it works.
Minor gripe. I just think it's a weird choice. Let's go on to weird choice number 2.
How would he know all about time travel and spaghetti?
Yeah, sure. The comedy in this movie largely, in a large way, centers around vomit, weird bodily things.
So before we dive into that,
okay,
this would fall under something that I really enjoyed and I forgot to mention it.
Okay.
I loved all the wrestling references.
There's a lot of wrestling references in this movie.
Yeah, they even talk about like pro wrestling entertainers, and then he used jabroni, and I'm like, yeah.
I did have an audible reaction to the usage of jabroni.
I was here for it. I'm hoping that like people that are making films that are like around my age that grew up with jabroni being used all the time are just going to start throwing it in all the movies and TV shows.
Okay. I'm with you. But the comedy overall was weird and at times cringy, but nothing as cringy as this.
Okay.
The opening scene. The falling babies. My wife and I were both like just really uncomfortable. Like they play it for like, it's almost like a Looney Tunes scene.
So
they're falling babies. And that's not even, dude, that's not even me getting to the one in the microwave.
Leah gasps when like the building starts tilting. because she knows like the babies are going to fall. My mind went to the late 90s, early aughts. There's this dark period in history where like killing baby jokes is a huge thing.
Oh, I forgot about that.
It's huge. Like, so I'm in middle school and like about to enter high school, and like youth group, people are telling these jokes. And doesn't that cement that it's kind of cringy? I mean, yes, it's very cringy, but like I had a nostalgic flashback that wasn't a good nostalgia flashback. And I'm like, are they really putting this on screen?
Yeah, that's how I kind of felt.
And they did.
It was weird because there's like goofy music playing, and it's he's being heroic, but also they're babies, and the CGI is bad in this scene.
So, like, for everything that's not a baby, I thought the CGI actually kind of looked good. It was the babies that looked like the American Sniper baby.
That's a deep cut.
But, I mean, literally, so that scene, yes, I get the cringe.
Yeah.
The bodily function stuff, you have to remember, alternate Barry is like 10 years younger Barry. He's in college.
Yeah.
And so...
I'm going to get to alternate Barry.
And he also is... So this is a good study in mental health. So our Barry had an adverse childhood experience, multiple adverse childhood experiences. Mm-hmm. Mom's murdered. Dad's in prison for the murder. Barry doesn't have his parents. Mm-hmm. And so there's several ways Barry could go. This Barry's motivated by it because he knows his dad's innocent, and it leads him to being a forensics guy. Alternate Barry has both parents. Alternate Barry lives in a loving home. They clearly make family meals and have jokes, and so he's not very mature. He's very sophomoric. He also is...
Doesn't it go beyond that? Isn't it beyond that, though? He's not...
So I would say he's stereotypical college student.
Whoa.
Oh, no.
No, come on. He's a tool.
That is your stereotypical college
Not
student.
all college students.
That's the stereotype, though.
That's the stereotype. But
And having gone to college, I would say if you are from an affluent household with minimal adverse childhood experiences or traumas, that you haven't had to grow up, and you're growing up with all these movies that are portraying like college is one big party and life's great, in which in this time period he would have been seeing him, because technically Barry would be around my age, and growing up, that's how college was portrayed. You have all the American Pie movies, you have all the random college movies. No, he's fitting in.
okay, I have just a very slight rebuttal to that. And I'm just going to do it by asking a question. If our Barry, who is so significantly shaped by his parents in a markedly less time to have them, how does it serve that to see this Barry have those parents who we assume are great parents longer, for him to be so immature?
Oh, it makes sense.
Do you think it makes sense?
It makes so much sense.
To me, logically, it kind of takes away from the whole point of his parents would have changed his life.
His parents definitely would have changed his life. But I mean, literally, if his parents overcared, he's not going to have much independence.
You're the mental health expert, so I'm willing to go with you on this because it's a very borderline for me. I'm not really super set on this.
Barry having like 9 or 10 years of both parents, having a glimpse of what a really good life looks like and being old enough to remember it, and then having it all taken away. Mm-hmm. He knows, like, oh, life was miserable growing up without both mom and dad, but before that, life was actually good.
Okay. Yeah. I'll go, like I said, I'll go with it. I'm not super set either way. For me, I couldn't follow the logic of like, because clearly he's sort of sophomoric and immature for this movie's purposes as comic relief.
And like, I'll do an analogy.
All right.
So there are people that go to church, born, brought up in the church, and you'd be like, are you really of the faith? And there's people that come to it later in faith or later in their life, and you're like, holy cow, this person's transformed. This person really has a love and a calling for Jesus. It's because they know what life's like without Jesus.
Yeah.
You're surrounded by all this goodness, you don't spiritually mature. And you're surrounded by all this goodness, you don't physically and emotionally mature.
Yeah.
So it made sense to me. But
okay. Well,
that's one perspective.
I am willing to go behind you as the mental health guy and say, okay, if you say it makes sense, then I'm willing to go with you.
There is a version that it makes sense, but there's 100 different versions that could have came out of it.
And weirdo alternate Barry, immature Barry, does sacrifice himself to save our Barry at the end. I did read that in scene correctly, right?
Yes.
He sacrifices himself to save him from himself.
Yes. Which I love that technically the bad person in this movie is the Flash.
Which wouldn't that, according to my timey-wiminess here, wouldn't that have been always what would have happened? And hence he wouldn't have been able to, anyways.
Yes.
You can't follow that too much longer. Okay. While we're on the subject of mental health, Ezra Miller plays Barry Allen in this movie.
Ezra does.
As I would say, almost barely functional at times. Almost neurodivergent. Like my wife asked in the movie, she asked me, is he supposed to be autistic?
So in the Snyder cut.
Yes.
So the Whedon cut and the Snyder cut you get two drastically different styles of the Flash. And I think the Flash suffers the most out of all the characters in the Snyder cut. I think the rest of them actually get elevated by Zack Snyder releasing it. But the Flash becomes more like,
would you agree with the neurodivergent?
I would agree with your wife's question of he seems like he's on the autism spectrum.
Yeah. Now, could he just be acting like that because he's got some PTSD?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of factors that can go into why someone would be socially awkward, not knowing how to read emotional cues, not really being able to adapt and make friends well. And so there's a lot of factors for it, but it fits in well with the Snyder cut.
Yeah.
It doesn't fit in with the Whedon cut, but
okay.
I feel a lot of this film builds off of Snyder's cut.
Okay. Thank you for clearing that up because I'm not as familiar with the different cuts. I don't remember them as well because I haven't watched them as much. That alone is not my problem. I'm fine with playing the character that way. Here's my issue. Here's the weird choice for me. It becomes a weird choice for me at the point where you hold Ezra from doing any press for this movie. Because they did not let Ezra do press, we have not heard anything from Ezra. We know that Ezra is struggling with mental health, and we are not getting any updates. I will say that watching him play Barry Allen, watching Ezra play Barry Allen with this like kind of frenetic, manic energy made me uncomfortable at times. That would have been easier for the viewer, or at least for me, if Ezra had been allowed to do press so Ezra could tell us, hey, I've had some issues, I'm getting help, and I'm doing better.
Yeah. So there was a weird line early on in the movie.
Yeah, it was especially early.
About after the falling babies. And the nurse, so he saves the nurses and the babies and then says, you may experience traumatic stress from this event. Go seek mental health counseling. This is area that the Justice League is not particularly strong on. We're working on it. And like, I looked at my wife and I'm like, that's kind of ironic that they have that in there. And then
That joke didn't quite land, did it?
Leah said that she thought that they probably added it afterwards to emphasize mental health's important. And like, but if they didn't add it, this is something that I feel gets overlooked within all the superhero films, especially after catastrophes. You get a little bit of it in Endgame where there's the support group early on, but there's not much like mental health for afterwards.
Yeah. So there's two possibilities in reality here. One possibility, Ezra didn't get help, isn't doing better, and there's nothing to update, which I don't think is probably the case. I think the other option is Ezra is getting help, is doing better. So the weird decision for me is, why did Warner Brothers not let him do an interview where they coached Ezra on what to say?
Maybe they felt like that was exploiting. For the first time, Warner Brothers might be doing something that was actually good and not like money related. If they said we didn't want to exploit Ezra actually getting treatment.
It's hard for me to believe that. But
I know.
Maybe. I'll acknowledge it's a possibility.
That's the like 1 in a million needle in the haystack possibility.
Yeah. All right. Last thing. The cameos. Let's talk about those cameos for a second. I just went through a laundry list of weird decisions, which Warner Brothers has a history of making.
Oh, yeah.
Let's talk about the Nick Cage cameo. Let's talk about them actually making fun of them making poor decisions. Like the Nick Cage Superman, that story is bonkers. It like the way Kevin Smith tells that, it just puts the Warner Brothers in such a terrible light at that time. And maybe not much has changed, because for them to put that in this movie to make fun of Warner Brothers in that way, that was super weird to me. That was, granted, I thought it was hilarious.
I like to think that the director snuck it in and no one at Warner Brothers like even knew.
Oh, I had to explain that to my wife. She was lost. She was like, why is Nick Cage Superman? She had no idea. And I had to like explain that to her after the movie. But it's weird. The cameos are weird. The best cameos are Michael Keaton and Sasha Calle. They're great.
So I really did like Reeves being there. Like,
yeah.
Because I grew up, like, those were on TBS randomly. And so I would watch the old Superman movies. And there really hasn't been, like, holy cannoli, this is amazing Superman movie since.
I had heart flutters, for sure. But then we're entering that territory of, like, he's not with us anymore. And now I feel weird.
I assume they had to get permission from the state.
Well, I would think so. But it's weird. It's weird. Although that's not really the cameos I had a problem with. Nick Cage, Clooney. What? Why? What? Okay.
Redemption for Clooney.
Let's compare this to Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness.
Okay.
The cameos in that movie are all like beloved characters that fans wanted to see. These cameos, at least half of them, are like, but why? Why would you choose these characters? Why aren't there any Arrowverse characters? Like, you show these weird versions of the Flash, like you show the one that wears the helmet.
Yeah.
Which apparently, well, I don't know.
There's like that actor's not sure if that's even
people
them.
are telling that actor it was the actor. People are saying it was CGI, I guess, but that's my point is why not just use Grant Gustin? Why not use some of the Arrowverse characters? Why are you using these characters no one really cares about? George Reeves Superman. Like what? Why? Yeah, is Brandon Routh it's hard to get a hold of? Is he super busy? Like what? You had people that were alive that you could have done cameos that you didn't have to CGI.
I wonder if Warner Brothers and maybe even the DCU head said, we want to space ourselves away from the Arrowverse and from the DCEU as much as possible.
Maybe, I guess. I don't know. I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall when they decided on what cameos were going to be in there. Because even if like, okay, Christopher Reeve, but why Helen Slater? Why that Supergirl?
That was
like,
an
why
interesting one.
Why not the CW Supergirl? I just don't understand because like, listen, the Supergirl with Helen Slater, I remember fondly because it was when I was a kid, but that movie was junk. Nobody liked that movie. It was terrible. Why are you throwing that in there? Like some people are going to recognize that. Like, look, if you're not over the age of 40, you didn't know what that was about.
Scotty did.
Of course Scotty did. Scotty's a geek like us.
So I will say, like when when the Flash is on the phone outside the courthouse, I'm like, that's not Ben Affleck's voice.
No.
And then like George Clooney steps out and I'm like, are they giving George Clooney redemption for being the worst Batman? And it's not his fault that he's the worst Batman. That's just an awful script.
They should have played scary music in that because the idea that Barry is now in that universe.
The worst.
Oh no! Somewhere Chris O'Donnell is 50-year-old Robin. Oh my goodness. And bat nipples everywhere. Woof. That ending was so weird. And just weird because who they chose to cameo. Like why? Why Clooney?
Because there's a generation of people that was their first Batman.
No, let's be honest. Clooney's nobody's Batman.
And maybe they were like, we really want Val, but Val's voice isn't there.
All right. Let's move on because we've already talked about this way too long. Is there anything biblical in this movie?
Yes.
There is?
Yes.
Oh, well, I'm all ears.
Yes. Okay. So, there was a couple of moments that I'm like, ooh, this plays out really well. But the hero sacrifice, for sure.
Where's the hero sacrifice in this movie?
Are you kidding me? The whole movie is Barry can't have his life. He can't have the happy life. Jesus in the garden is like, Lord, if it's your will, take this cup away from me. Barry has that moment. Barry can't have his happy life because mom has to die.
But it doesn't make any sense.
But mom has to die. Every Flash movie, mom has to die.
So mom has to die.
No matter what.
This movie doesn't matter.
The Flash series, Flashpoint, Flash Paradox. Barry's mom has to die.
No, she doesn't. She only has to die because that's what happened. Right?
She has to die.
Barry goes back and changes time. That's what causes all the problems. It has nothing to do with his mom. That's just what happened.
It's what happened. And Barry doesn't get to live a happy childhood.
But in this movie, they make that like some crux. It's like a Nexus event in Marvel.
It is a Nexus event.
Oh, it doesn't make any sense.
It does.
It doesn't now.
Because it is the butterfly effect.
I feel like there's no hero's journey in this.
There is.
It doesn't,
Barry
because nothing happens. He doesn't win at the end.
That he has to sacrifice.
He basically just says, I have to stop fighting. I don't even look at it as a sacrifice.
And
the Tool Barry gets the sacrifice.
Tool Barry does. And
Tool Barry saves him from himself.
Tool Barry grows up.
Which would have eliminated all of it. I don't understand.
It worked for me. And there was another scene, and I like really wish that we would have recorded the day before, right after I'd watched this, because I had a lot of thoughts, and I did not write any of them down. So,
does it have to do with Michael Keaton being Methuselah?
That is epic.
He looks great. By the way, I don't know how old he is, but he looks great.
And there was something Keaton said that I'm like, ooh, that's deep. So I really want to go back and watch this movie. I'm not going to lie.
Was it about the spaghetti?
No, but the spaghetti was great.
All right. Who's the winner of this movie?
Honestly, it might be Ezra.
Boy.
Just because you kind of get a brief glimpse or a brief break, I guess, from real life problems. And although I think that the real life problems and the real life problems with Warner Brothers and the real life we're going in a whole new universe, doomed this from even getting a fair chance from most. Mm-hmm. And so there's a multitude of things that have factored into why I think this movie won't do well at the box office, including that Max exists. And these movies come out quickly and it's going to be there because they have the DC app or section on Max. Mm-hmm. And so there's a lot of things that work against it. It's either Ezra or Michael Keaton. Those are the only two that could have won it for me.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Sasha Cal. I thought she was fantastic.
She was fantastic.
I just wish we would have seen more of her. I don't like those two characters, Michael Keaton's Batman and Sasha Cal's Supergirl, who's in it for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Dies repeatedly, and that they have to die. And that there's basically the end of the movie is well, we just have to sacrifice this world.
This time
the end.
Yep.
And I don't know. That was very unsatisfying for me. But again, that's subjective,
So,
but I thought she was great.
She was.
And I want a movie about her, to be honest.
Elseworlds, let's make it happen.
I feel like in Elseworlds, that Elseworlds Supergirl, that may be the best depiction of Supergirl ever on a screen.
Yeah.
She was fantastic. And I was immediately, when they find her underground in the pod, I was immediately hooked.
Or the winner might be Michael Shannon, because he just gets to cash in.
Michael Shannon, in interviews for this movie, he's like, I don't get it, but whatever. They paid me.
They called me. I asked for Zack Snyder's blessing. That was the only way I was doing this. Zack's like, go for it, buddy.
Also,
cash in.
Love Michael Shannon.
Yes.
Because he's so honest. Who's the loser of the movie?
Warner Brothers by a long shot.
Yeah, well, so
financially
opened to $55 million, which was below they were calling $70 million before the weekend, and that was underneath expectations. So for them to not even hit that, woof.
Again, honestly, if this was in the last stage of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it would be one of the top 3 films. So, so much better. Oh, people aren't giving this movie a chance. You can say the timeline and there's no real sacrifice for this. That's a Flashpoint story. Because at the end, you come to realize Barry really can't mess with the timeline. If he does, it messes everything up and he has to go back and fix it no matter what.
Yeah.
That's why I'm not a fan of doing a Flashpoint movie unless you have the whole ensemble.
It should have been a more established character before you got to this story.
Yes.
Yeah. I would agree with that. I think the loser of the movie is Andy Muschietti because, as I said before, I think there's a good movie in here. And I think a lot of these questions, these weird decisions that I went through were probably not him. I'm guessing it was Warner Brothers, being Warner Brothers.
Honestly, after watching this movie and seeing the style and the pace, if Warner Brothers keeps him on for the Batman movie that he's slated to direct, I'm actually excited about it.
I think if he survives this, we'll know that he's a good part of the movie, because let's just remember that they did this to the Ant-Man writer.
Yeah.
Whatever his Loveness, Jeff Loveness, and they said he's going to write Avengers Kang Dynasty. And then Ant-Man came out and not everyone liked it. And then they said, nope, he's not writing Avengers Kang Dynasty. So we'll see if they stick with Muschietti on The Brave and the Bold. I'm worried for him.
I'm rooting for him because, like, the thing is, he's slated to direct the
Brave and the Bold.
Get out of the comic book realm. He's the It series.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
That takes place in that town.
Yeah.
Deary or whatever. Yeah. So he's slated to direct that series and write it, I think.
How many out of 10 are you giving this movie?
It's between 7.5 and an 8. Like, if the graphics were better, I might go all the way up to like an 8.7. Because, like, I feel the story, because The Flash is a mess as a story anyway, I feel. Just because you get into time travel and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
I actually dug the story. I thought they hit the emotional high points. The only thing they really whiffed on was Iris. And Iris, again, if you had the Flash more established, and maybe you would have flushed out Iris a little bit more.
What is Iris even doing in this movie? Like, it doesn't make any sense. But
yeah. So it's in that range.
I'm going to give it a 6. I think if I was only judging it against DC EU stuff, I'd go up to like 7.5 or 8.
It might be a solid 10.
Because like I said, I thought it was enjoyable. I had a good enough time watching it. But I'm going to give it a 6, just judging it as a comic book movie. And that's, as if you've been following our Phase 4 reviews, that's puts it right on up there with a lot of them for me.
Yeah.
So, yeah. What did you guys think? Let us know on our social media. We got to get to Comics Conclave with Scotty.
On the Geek Phone.
Cody, to the Geek Phone. All right, we're here on the Geek Phone with Scotty. Geek Scotty, what's happening?
Not much. How are you guys tonight?
Pretty good. We're feeling kind of lively. We've had a lively Flash discussion.
Oh, yeah. Not too many punches were thrown.
Yeah, I think we're mostly in agreement. It's just kind of the details that make us go either way.
Yeah.
I think we're pretty much in agreement where we started at. And then there's details that send us in opposite directions. Now, I have a question because you're our comic book expert. In the Flashpoint story, is there anything like the end of this movie where there's colliding worlds? Because that feels like they're biting directly from the Secret Wars Incursions thing.
Yes, there is some of that within Flashpoint the comic.
Okay, good.
Because by the end of Flashpoint the comic, that's how we got the New 52. So that colliding is that, yes, there was some things that stayed the same. Like once you hit New 52, like Batman was still kind of the same because you still had Damian, you still had Dick, you still had all the Robins you had in Batgirl. And those things kind of stayed the same. Whereas some things like Superman changed drastically. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of the same thing, yes.
Okay. Well, that's good. That's reassuring. It's everything's derivative in the comics, But that's just a side thing. Let's just give us your thoughts, Scott. I don't think we have to ask this because I think we know you are a big DC guy, and I'm betting you loved this. So just kind of tell us what you thought of the Flash.
I really did enjoy it. For me, it was very fun. It is not as weighty as, say, like Across the Spider-Verse or something like that. But for me, it was fun, especially, and I know I've seen some criticism about that opening of burying the babies. We
talked about that.
I'm not with you on that. That was cringy for me, but it's just mostly because of babies and microwaves and such.
For me, though, that's a very much Barry, like how Barry would handle that situation, and I love how, and I know this is also very divided on the CGI. And I like that we feel like watching that movie, and even when there isn't the moments with the CGI, we feel like we're seeing that world through Barry's eyes. I thought that was a really kind of interesting.
Oh, he's going with the Korg narrator defense. It's the Korg narrator defense.
Yeah.
It's all through Barry's eyes. That's why the CGI is not great.
Well, when you go with the storytelling device.
Oh, here we go.
Yes.
Here we go. I'm just
It
messing with you,
works out.
Scotty. I understand what you're saying. So what would you have given the movie out of 10 before we get to Comics Conclave?
I think I go 8. I think I go 8.
Oh,
Okay, so we're in the same ballpark because
Yeah.
I said 7.5 to 8. Like, I want to give it a low B or a really high C. There were some things that could have been a little bit different, and if the graphics were like perfect, spot on, I wouldn't have any trouble giving it a really high B.
Yeah. If I'm just comparing it to DC movies, I might give it an 8 because it's better than Black Adam for sure.
Well,
But just as a comic book movie, I went with a 6.
sadly, right now, as we're speaking, it's making less money than Black Adam.
Yeah,
Which is
Sadly.
ridiculous.
rough weekend.
Well, and it's what we talked about before. No matter how great this movie is going to be, just like how Fear of the Gods was, that negative press, no matter which way you look at it, if you're a Snyder fan or not, was going to kill that.
yeah,
you know,
they're lame
and-
duck movies. That's the problem.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is, I think there is still some of that. No matter what you feel, go see it. Ezra is amazing in both parts.
Mhm. We agreed on that.
Yeah, I totally love the difference between the two Barrys, and that's what made that movie for me. And spoilers, seeing Christopher Reeves just gutted me.
Yeah.
And seeing him and Helen Slater side by side.
You like
I
the
told
Helen
you.
Slater?
Yeah,
You like the Helen Slater? I just
did.
can't
It was
forget
nice.
how much of a bomb that movie was.
But
For those of us that were alive in the 80s, that movie was not like universally loved.
no, not a bit. But it was fun finally seeing the two of them side by side. Because there was a point where that movie involved Chris Reeves, and Chris Reeves was like, "No, I do not want to do this movie and take away from it being a movie."
Good call. But then he did Superman 4, and you're just like, okay, Chris.
Yeah.
All right, you're here to talk about our Comics Conclave title. Remind us what it was.
Sandman, Preludes and Nocturnes, which covers the first 8 issues. This was
Such
written
a
by Neil
great book.
Gaiman. Yes, one of my favorites of all time. And also, issue 8 is one of my favorite single issues of comics of all time.
Okay, why don't you tell us what it's about?
It is about, starts out with Roderick Burgess trying to kidnap Death pretty much so he can prolong his life. Instead of kidnapping Death, he ends up taking Dreaming, which is Morpheus, and ends up entombing him to try and leverage him to get what he wants. Well, years pass and a lot of things happen to that. A lot of people fall into dream sickness and start to really kind of become cataclysmic for everybody until Morpheus breaks back out. And then through that, Morpheus tries to rediscover that new world once he's free yet again, and finds that his world is in ruin and has to figure out how to recoup his powers and his mantle.
There are epic battles.
Yes.
There are epic interactions. Honestly, so I had watched the Netflix series first before I had gone back and read the graphic novel. And I might have gotten just as choked up during the issue where they introduced Dream's sister Death.
Yes, issue 8.
And I'm like, you got me. Like, there's some deep things that happen within that.
Like I said, it's one of my favorite single issues of all time, hands down.
The Netflix series does a good job keeping pretty close to the comic.
Yeah,
there's some subtle changes and there's some things that had to be changed, but it really worked.
the biggest thing was the removing of some of those characters like Etrigan or Martian Manhunter, those things, and to make them work, and then changing, Constantine to Joanna doesn't change that narrative one bit.
Yeah.
Which really helped.
So Scotty, who is your favorite character within this comic book run? Besides Dream or Morpheus?
I really like Death. Death is for me. I really like Death.
If we had a producer, I'd be like, clip that. Clip that. I really like Death. I'm sorry. I interrupted. Go ahead.
Death is probably my favorite, and it's something we see going forward as well. Lucifer would probably be my second favorite. And past these issues, you see even more of both those characters that I really enjoy. Another honorable mention, Cain and Abel.
I was going to say Cain and Abel are great together.
And Gregory.
Yes. Poor Abel.
Yeah.
Just is constantly getting killed by Cain.
Yes. It's a fun Neil Gaiman ride. You have this very weighty story, but at the heart of it, there's still this fun, whimsical, childlike feel with the story. No matter how dark you get, even with the John Dee stuff, there's still that feeling of hope. And I think that's something also that I think the Netflix series really encapsulated a lot too. And I'm so glad they did.
So is this your favorite Neil Gaiman work?
It's a close one. There's probably about a 3-way tie. It's probably Coraline, American Gods, and this. Those 3 for me are.
Now is Neil is the one behind Good Omens, right?
Yes.
Okay. Just one double check.
Yes, him and Terry Pratchett is.
He really likes to play around with the spiritual stuff, doesn't he?
He does.
He does.
And that's part of the reason I really like this is because you do get some of that spirituality. And Dream is one of the 7. How do they phrase it, Scotty?
One of the 7 pretty much gods, is how they refer to them as
ever existing, eternal, or something. Yeah.
Ever existing, yes.
And that there's something above them, but these 7 things or these 7 beings exist.
Yeah. I gotta admit, Sandman was always a little too deep for my comic book reading preferences.
It's more, I would say it's geared towards more the adult crowd.
Oh, for sure.
And definitely like at times very philosophical.
Yes.
Very spiritual, and there's a lot of cool themes that are being played within it.
Well, and this and Hellblazer really were the 2 Vertigo titles that really kept that ship alive, that imprint, and it was always that kind of like, are they in the main continuity or not? But they kind of existed in their own thing and really worked, and so much so that here in the last 10 years, they've brought that title back and they start doing things with Death and Lucifer again. And those characters again.
It's very wild because like that was so Sandman becomes a thing in like the early mid 90s when the comic book industry's struggling.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And so it's one of those weird little kind of under the radar titles that probably keeps that art form alive.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
In a lot of ways. Because Marvel and DC were doing their embossed covers and their gimmick
the
things.
90s explosion,
and printing a jillion copies of each episode of each issue, and
making X-Men #1 the biggest selling comic of all time because you printed that many.
There were like 8 covers that you put together to make one big picture. Oh my goodness. Any closing thoughts?
I recommend this title. It may not be for young ages, but for anybody who is older and really I think like Cody said, it's very much philosophical. I think there's something from any of these 8 issues or even further in the run that I think anybody can take from it. You have this character that's all knowing and all being, but you see this character who has kind of lost his way and rediscovers his way. And, we all have those times in life. And I think, this could be inspirational for anybody.
I will say, if you watch the Netflix series, the first episode lasts forever, but it's very comic book accurate. And then after you get through the first episode, it picks up and you're like, oh, this is fun. And the guy they cast for Dream or Morpheus, his voice is phenomenal.
Yes.
All right. Well, that was our comic conclave title, Sandman Preludes and Nocturnes, which is one of the cooler names for a title.
Oh, yes.
In my opinion. Scotty, thank you so much for coming on.
No problem. Anytime.
As usual, everybody, please subscribe to the pod if you haven't already. Give us a rating. Also, we're really trying to push for sharing your favorite episodes on your social media, telling your friends why you like it. That would help us out too. Just get more people. Let's get more people into the community and get more people talking about this, and then we can do some different things. All right. Tell us what you thought of The Flash.
Please.
We're pretty all over the place. So
we are.
Where are you at? That's what we're interested to know. We'll see you next time.